In this video, we are talking about making thermal compost, also known as hot compost. This is a great way to create a product that you can add back to the vineyard to create high populations of both bacterial and fungal diversity in your vineyard. And you do that by creating a hot compost and then using that to make a compost tea and then spraying this across the vineyard. So the first thing you need is a compost ring. This is wire mesh. It's pretty sturdy because you don't want it to be able to flex. You need about 4 meters worth of wire. It's 120 centimeters high, and then you're clipping it together with D shackles to create a ring. You can see that it's fairly thick, and that way, with the weight of the compost sitting inside it, it's not going to bend or fall over or collapse. Now, the main components of making a hot compost are nitrogen and carbon. Basically, you want to use woody materials such as wood chips, like this. The smaller the wood chips, the better. You can also use twigs and branches like this. This is more wood chip material. It's full of bark, twigs and branches. And then the green or nitrogen side of the material that you're looking for, you can mostly use freshly cut grass is good. You can use fresh cut hay, weeds from the garden beds that you want to pull out. There's basically anything green you can chop up and put it in there. The third component, which you can do if you would like, is to use a little bit of animal manure, but this component is not always necessary. Once you've set up your mesh ring and you've locked it in, you want to then start doing layers of your carbon and nitrogen materials in layers of 20 centimeters. So we do a layer of wood chips, brown material, and then a layer of green material, and then continue that process until you start filling the ring. And then you can stand on top of it, pack it in so there's no air gaps, and then keep filling until the ring is full. Once that process is done, you then have a full ring in the correct ratios to carbon to nitrogen. After that step, you can undo the shackles, open it up, turn the compost, and then refill the ring. As you're refilling it the second time, you are using water from a garden hose to heavily water the compost pile. The compost pile needs to be a minimum of 50% hydration. So that's a final ring. As you can see, I used a pretty basic recipe, mostly mixed wood chip material for the brown material and fresh cut grass for the green material. Trying to do even layers down and then stomping it in as you go just to compact it so you can get a really tight full ring. Once the ring starts composting down, it will drop significantly, probably by 2/3. So that's why you need to compact it down and really get a full ring so you can get, one, the thermal mass inside of the compost ring, but also because it's going to drop quickly. Next up, what we're going to do is break the ring down. We're going to open up the D-shackles, take the wire off, completely mix all the materials together so it's an even mixture. We're going to set the wire back up and we're going to start filling the ring back with the material. And as we're doing that, each layer we're going to be watering down with a hose so that we can get this material to 50% or more saturation. It's really important that you pack it down as you go to remove all of the big air pockets. You also want to get a really full ring because as it starts to break down, it's going to drop significantly, probably by a third. So it'll drop down to there. So if we pack it in tight, we want to make sure that we have enough compost inside the ring so that we can maintain the thermal heat in the core or center of the compost ring. One thing to note when you're making your compost ring, if you're using brown material made up of mulch, it's really important that you let it mature for at least 1 to 3 months before you use it for your compost ring, particularly if it has eucalyptus, gum leaf, or any pine material in it. The essential oils in the eucalyptus and pine act as an antimicrobial, so they're actually going to be doing damage to the microbes in the hot compost that we're making. So make sure you do let it mature. After that 1 to 3 months, the essential oils should disperse and it shouldn't be an issue for your hot compost. So that is the finished compost ring. As you saw, I mixed everything together and then put it back inside the ring. And in layers, I was stamping it down to push all of the air out of it and watering it in as I go. You want to make sure you continually water it as you go because you want to get at least 50% hydration on the compost. If you don't have the water, the microbes are not able to survive and you're not going to get the thermal mass that you need. You also need to stamp it in as you go to pull all of the air pockets out of it because you want this to be a really tight compost pile, and that way you're going to get the thermal mass that you need. Within 24 hours of finishing your compost pile, you need to be checking the temperature. You can get long thermometers for checking compost from garden supply stores or online. You check it in several places, in the center, from the top, and you want to be getting that thermometer right into the core of the pile. Within 24 hours, you need to be checking that. And as soon as the pile gets to 55 to 60 degrees Celsius, that is when you take the wire off, you break it down, you mix it thoroughly. And while you're mixing it, you're shaking it about and really getting air into the pockets and loosening everything up. And then you set the ring back up and you fill it again. And as you're filling it, you're compacting it. There's no need to add extra water at that stage unless it looks as though the compost pile is less than 50% hydration. Then you may need to top it up with water. You do that process, checking it daily to see how hot it gets, and every time it gets to that 55 to 60 degrees, you break it down and you do the process again. The goal with the compost pile is to do the breakdown and rebuild process 5 times within 15 days. And if you're able to get the compost pile up to that temperature within that period, that means you've made a really healthy hot compost. The last thing to note is when you're breaking down the pile to mix it, if you're noticing white fungal spores, those spores are anaerobic. It just means that the pile does not have enough oxygen in it. So when you're breaking it down, take the wire off, mix it, and really thoroughly get air into the pile to try and reduce that. If you get enough air into the pile, it should disappear and your compost will be fine to use. Close up look at the compost pile. You can see that it's packed in super tight. It's well mixed. You've got a lot of, well, 50-50 carbon, nitrogen, green to brown in there. And it's saturated. It's wet all the way through. And as you'll see when you're watering it in, as you're watering it in, you'll start seeing it trickling out from the sides. That's a good thing. That means you've definitely hitting that 50% saturation. So as you can see, the compost pile has reached the temperature and I now need to mix it. The steam coming off the pile, you can physically feel the heat. And now it's just a matter of using your fork, breaking the pile down, completely mixing it, knocking it around a fair bit so you can get plenty of oxygen into the pile because it does kind of clump down. Once you've kind of mixed it up, you're going to throw it back into this ring, step inside and then stamp it down. And then you wait for it to get to temperature again.